Welcome to the Bracket Factory and welcome to my latest video, which is again all about my Austin 7 Special. Now if you saw my last video you would have seen that I took it for a drive and everything is great, but there is one minor detail, and that is it doesn't actually have any kind of handbrake. So in this video I'm going to make a handbrake. Now I might make a handbrake called, a type of handbrake called a fly-off handbrake. So if you don't know what one of those is, then watch this and you'll find out. But anyway, let's get cracking. So get a beer or a cup of coffee and enjoy. So right, over at the bench, and this is my starting point. I've actually got this, and this is the handbrake lever that was made by Wragg in the mid-80s and came as part of the pile of bits that on my car started off as. And you see it says just number 9 on there. That was because it was made for chassis number 9. It's never been used. It was bolted to the car, never been used. There's no sign of it ever having any kind of linkage. It was just supplied to be used eventually. Now, it never has been used, but I haven't decided yet, I may use it. It's all a bit rusty and I can't really bolt it back on the car as it is because the car will not thank me for it. So it needs to be cleaned up and beautified and painted, but I might use that. Okay, so that got these two. Now these are Austin 7 parts, and these are the sort of ratchet quadrants for an existing handbrake. Got these off eBay. I paid £17.50 for these, and I was informed by somebody that you can actually buy them pretty much brand new for £6 a pair. So if you're the person who sold me these, nice one. You might consider getting some old rope and selling that, because there's always somebody out there who's sucker enough to buy this stuff, and then on this occasion it was me. Also got these parts. Now these parts, this is a casting which is for an original Austin 7 lever, and this is the little thing for pulling the ratchet, sorry, the pawl, and this is a pawl. It's got something stuck in there, but it's a starting point. These were kindly given to me by a very talented chap. This is the guy, Andrew Goodfellow. If you ever need anything doing, he is your man. He is an expert in Austin 7s, and he's also a master craftsman. But anyway, right, moving on. So what I'm going to do next is show you my thinking and what my sort of 2 or 3 options are in terms of how this is all going to work. So you can see here I've got two drawings, back of a fag packet drawings. So this first one, this is the ratchet here, as you can see. And the way it works is you pull the lever backwards. This pull goes click, 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 click as it goes round here. And then when you let go, it stays in that position. It locks solid. And to release it, you squeeze this handle, it pulls this up, and it releases the handbrake. And that's basically how an original Austin 7 handbrake works. Now this one is completely the other way around. When you pull the lever on, it doesn't go click, 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 because this tension spring is pulling this up. You can pull the lever on, and if you let go, it'll just fly off again. And this is called a fly off. And to make it stay on, you basically squeeze this lever. It pulls that up, it pushes this down, and it engages. And if you engage it and let go, it will lock in there, and this will lock in that tooth. So, and the way you release it is just you pull on that, this springs up and it flies off, and that's called a fly-off handbrake. And that's the original Austin 7 design. This is a fly-off. What I'm going to do, I think, pretty sure, is I'm going to do this design. I'm going to do a fly-off handbrake, which means that if I just pull it, I can use the brake, and let go, it's not going to lock on. But if I want to lock it on, I can do. So next step is to probably put this on the car, offer it up, see where it sits, work out what this radius is, work out how far away from there it will need to go. Oops, you can't see how far from there it needs to go, how much throw I'm going to get, and just start to sort of put things in place and sort of see how it works. Right, so I've now bolted the lever on the car, and there's a little stop here to stop it going all the way over, but actually sat in the car, and if I hold it in this position, sort of 12:30 or so, it's a good position to grab hold of, and this position is a good position to have pulled it on. So kind of lining up with that rivet, and this is where it's going to starting position. I've made this little template. This template is the radius, centerline radius of this of these holes here, like that. And if I stick this template onto here like that, and oops, fallen off, slide it onto the shaft in the little cutout area like that, I can now mark up the radius. I can put some masking tape on here, mark up the radius, and drill a couple of holes to mount these on. And these are going to run on either side, one on either side, so it's going to come up in between. And then when I've done that, I can think about, this is a little handle. This handle is going to go on here, sort of like this somehow. So I need a little pivot hole about there. Little prototype, and this is going to go, I have to take it out, it's going to go right down inside, yeah, about there. It's going to go about there. So anyway, it'll all become apparent. Take it all off now, mark up this, drill some holes, and start trying to offer it back up with a few bits and bobs. So I've put these quadrants on now, and you can see that the lever moves backwards and forwards between the pair of them. I'm going to make some spaces to go in here to space it off. It's going to be about 1 millimetre either side, and you can see I've got a little Sharpie mark there and also there. I'm going to drill holes there, so that's where this is where the pawl will go, and that's where the lever will go. So I think now it's time to whip it all off again and take it over to the bench, and we can start making some prototype parts to see if we can get it all working. Right, so I'm back over at the bench, and I've made these, and all I've done is cut 2 strips of metal, well, 1 strip, cut it down the middle, cut this sort of taper on here, and filed these sort of teeth in the end, so it's loosely the same as that. Now I'm putting absolute minimum effort into this because it might be completely wrong, it might not work. So I'm not bothering with anything other than this detail here. So if I put this on there like that, and that on there, sort of like that, so I know where it's going to go. And this is going to go, I need to find a bolt, on there like that. So that should sort of engage in these teeth, in theory, like that, and then there'll be a link up to here to a handle. So I won't do any more on that. I'll make a rough and ready handle, probably just one side of it, probably out of aluminium, and then bodge it all on and see if I think it's going to work. And if I think it's going to work, then I'll either remake these or I'll tidy them up. They're not too bad. So yeah, make a handle now, I think. Behold, Franken handbrake. So when I said I wasn't going to spend any extra time making this, I wasn't kidding, was I? So it's an absolute lash up. This is cut out of thin steel. Took about 2 minutes. This took about 1 minute. It hasn't got a spring, so it's got an elastic band instead. So you can see what happens. You have to pull that up to engage it. So I'm going to stick it on the car. I'm going to use that elastic band for this spring. It'll either have a tension spring or a compression spring here, if it works. And I'm going to use a bungee cord to simulate pulling the brake on, which is going to operate off the lever at the bottom of the lever at the bottom of the shaft. So yeah, let's stick it on and see if it works, shall we? So Franken handbrake is now bolted to the car, and you can see this is, well, there's a bungee cord attached to it, so this is now spring loaded. So if I was driving along and I just want to tug on that, it will pull the brake on, and as soon as I let go, it flies off again. But if I want to hold the brake on, I do that, I engage this pawl and it stays on. And if I want to take it off, all I've got to do is pull on that and off it comes. Comes that. So on the strength of that, it works. What I did find is I couldn't put both of these on. I'm going to have one on either side because there's not enough clearance between this and the body, so the whole thing needs to be spaced off somehow. I can probably adjust the shaft, but the principle works. I think I'm not going to keep that, obviously. I'm not going to keep that. I might tidy these up because they work quite nicely, so but that's pretty much the only part I'm going to keep. So take it all off, back to the bench and start making some hopefully nice parts which are more in keeping with the car. About 10 minutes of fettling, and they're not bad. They're sort of 80% there, I'd say, but I think I'll stop here and then focus my attention on some bits which don't even exist yet, like the lever. So crack on with the lever, I think. So turning my attention to the handle, what I was going to do is I was going to use this thick alley plate and create a sort of a sandwich and create this sort of a handle that sort of went like that, so it was kind of sort of this sort of cross section. And I thought, nah, that's way too heavy duty, it's a bit too Massey Ferguson, so it's going to be more along this lines. But what I'm going to do, I took my prototype, which was quick and dirty, and I've sort of taken it off and sort of filed it a bit and make it sort of how I like it. And then I've done a pattern and I've put a slightly more kick at the top. I like it like that. So I'm going to cut 2 of these out, and then I'm going to cut a strip. I'm going to weld a strip and fabricate this handle, and then file it so that it's sort of nice and smooth. I might even drill a few holes in it to add a bit of lightness. So I should end up with a fabricated handle with sort of two prongs which go either side of there. Which is super light. Of course, it doesn't have to be very strong. All it needs to do is to create the force to lift the pawl. That's all it needs to do. It doesn't have to be a heavy duty thing. It's not going to wear out. So yeah, make a couple of those. I was going to use this 3mm steel. Doesn't need to be. This is just under 2mm. A couple of those, and make some spaces to hold it apart while I weld it, and then weld on this strip here. So let's get cracking with that. So quite a lot of filing and fettling later, I've made these two, and I've made these little spacers to keep them apart, and also this spacer here, and I'm going to put a clamp on that, and what I'm going to do now is cut a strip, and I'm going to weld it in place over here, and hopefully, if I can manage it, to wrap it round the top a little bit as well, so you don't kind of stab your hand on the top. This is where it all gets a bit fizzly, and if I'm not careful I can wreck the job by using too much heat or whatever. So I'm just going to go very carefully. I've got to cut out this strip pretty accurately. It's going to have to be, well, that's overall 11.3, so I'm going to have to make it sort of 10.3 or something, maybe 10.5, actually 10 10. I'm going to cut it 10 mil. 10 mil over the top of that. I'm going to tack it in place and let's see how we get on, shall we? So I briefly stopped and brought it back to the bench, primarily because the battery on my helmet had run flat, but it's also quite good to sometimes take stock, let the job cool down. So you can see I'm just tacking this on, and the reason I've left this long bit on here is so that I can bend it round. So I've got a couple more tacks to put in here and here, so when I bend it, this doesn't lift off. And then I'll probably go all the way around to about there, I'd say. A couple more tacks in just there, and then when it's all tacked, I'm going to run a bead all the way around the edge on both sides, obviously, and then that gives me quite a lot of meat to actually file it all and get a sort of a nice sort of curved edge. I don't really want to see welding marks on here. I don't want to see a lovely sort of stacked diamond thing. I just want to file it round so it's nice and smooth. So far so good. I've not wrecked it yet, so that's quite good, isn't it? Yeah, wait for my battery to charge up, finish off tacking and then weld it all up, I think. So here it is, after the welding and fettling. I used this finger sander, which is a great thing, I use it all the time, and you probably will have noticed that in the end I didn't actually use any filler. I just did a fillerless pulse weld, and because there's plenty of metal involved. So yeah, that's come out all right, I think. Probably going to paint it because it's only going to go rusty, so I'm probably going to paint it gloss black. While I was waiting for it to cool down, I just made this pin on the lathe. I'll drill a little hole in there, so that's I'll have a split pin through there. So let's stick it on the lever. So this is what it looks like fitted to the arm. It's got a couple of washers in there, obviously spaced it all so that it was exactly right with those two washers. I measured it beforehand, and that is pretty much as I want it to be. This of course is already done, so I now need to make a connecting rod. Where's my manky old one? I can't find it. I'm not going to use it like that. I'm actually going to use a bar which is threaded, a rod which is threaded at both ends. So it's slightly adjustable. Not that it'll need to be adjusted once it's set up, but the idea is that the bar will pass through a hole in a bracket, and that hole, it means I can mount a compression spring and a stop on the other side, so I can control how far the lever goes down, etc. Blah 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 blah. So right, I need to find some rod. I need to crack on with that. So some more done on this, and you can see that I've made this connecting link now. So it's the equivalent to that, but obviously it's now a rod. Now it needs to be 3/16 rod turned down to 3/16 BSF at each end. I made these little black brass connectors. I only had 5mm threaded bar, so I've just used that temporarily. But you can see that I've got this extra little bracket in here, and that serves two purposes. One, it is the stop for the compression spring, and two, it's the stop to stop this thing flinging all the way over. So when I get the bar, I make a couple of little brass collars that go on here that will have little grub screws, so you can adjust both the tension and the throw. But you'll also see that I've added some lightness to the handle, which of course you have to do to match this lightness that's been added here. I've drilled some little holes in these pins. I'm probably going to lock wire these together because it looks cool. I think now oh yeah, I've also got some new ones of these have turned up in the post. Half the price of my rusty old ones. So I think now let's stick it all in the car and see if it actually works. So there it is, fitted to the car. Lots of shimming and spacing needed to make sure everything lines up, but quite happy with that. Pull it on, off it goes. Off it flies, in fact. Pull it forwards, obviously doesn't ratchet on. Click that, holds on, off it flies. So, what next? What next indeed? So, eagle-eye viewers may have noticed that whilst the actual lever works, it flies off, it comes on, it flies off. It doesn't actually put the back brakes on. It's not actually connected to the back brakes. So obviously that is what I'm going to do next, but not in this video. That'll be the next video, but also I've got a mission that I've been requested to take part in, and that is to do a bit of work with Brian from Oak Swamp and to sort out his fuel tank. So in my next video, I'm going to be taking a trip down to see Brian, get his tank and see what we can do. So if you've liked that, please hit like. If you want to see anything that's coming next, please hit subscribe. But for now, thanks for watching.